The Great Game was a geopolitical rivalry between the British Empire and the Russian Empire in the 19th century, primarily centered around Central Asia. The complex dynamics of this competition were influenced by a combination of strategic, economic, and ideological factors. The term itself is believed to have been coined by Arthur Conolly, a British intelligence officer, and it came to symbolize the strategic maneuvering and espionage that characterized this intense geopolitical struggle. In the early 19th century, the Indian subcontinent was a mix of independent princely states and British East India Company rule. The British and Russian empires became entangled in a power struggle over Afghanistan, with Russia fearing British influence in Central Asia and Britain concerned about Russia expanding its empire into India. In 1801, Tsar Paul I of Russia proposed a joint Franco-Russian invasion of India. General Vasily Petrovich Orlov was ordered to march to Orenburg, conquer Central Asian Khanates, and potentially invade India. However, Paul's assassination in the same year halted this plan. Napoleon continued the idea of invading India but faced resistance from Tsar Alexander I. Amid the Napoleonic Wars and conflicts with Qajar Iran, British concerns about defending their Indian colony heightened. The collapse of the French army in 1812 eased the threat. The Russo-Persian Wars, including the Treaty of Gulistan in 1813, heightened tensions, and the Shah of Iran played a diplomatic game, receiving support from Britain, aligning with Napoleon, and later turning to Britain again. The Russian invasion of Iran in 1826 to 1828 resulted in a Russian victory, further weakening Persia and intensifying the colonial contest between Russia and Britain in the region. This set the stage for the Great Game in Central Asia. Lord Ellenborough in 1830 charged Lord William Bentinck with creating a novel trade route to Bukhara, marking the inception of the Great Game. Britain aimed to create buffer states, including Turkey, Persia, the Khanate of Khiva, and the Khanate of Bukhara, to safeguard against Russian expansion. The goal was to maintain British sea power and secure access to Afghanistan through trade routes along the Indus and Sutlej rivers. Britain considered itself a civilizing power with a duty to bring goods, values, and the concept of private property to Central Asia. The aim was to transform nomads into settled tribal herdsmen and foster the development of modern states with agreed borders. As Russia expanded southward from Siberia in the 1820s, British concerns about upsetting the balance of power, anticipating a Russian invasion of India, and fears of disrupting established trade routes intensified. The discovery of petroleum deposits in Central Asia in the early 20th century added another layer of significance. Various individuals played key roles in exploring and understanding Central Asia during the 19th century. Figures like William Moorcroft, Lieutenant Arthur Conolly, Captain Alexander Burns, and Colonel Henry Pottinger undertook perilous journeys into Afghanistan and Central Asia, providing crucial intelligence. In 1838, the British ousted Dost Mohammed Khan and replaced him with Shah Shuja ul Mulk to extend influence into Afghanistan. The strategic move led to tensions, the killing of the British envoy Alexander Burns in 1841, and a disastrous retreat in 1842. The aftermath of the Crimean War in 1856 delayed further Russian expansion into Central Asia to avoid provoking the British. However, Russia initiated campaigns in 1864, expanding toward Kabul and Herat. Russian generals like Konstantin Kauffman and Mikhail Skobelev played notable roles in these campaigns. In 1878, Russia sent troops to Kabul, triggering the Second Anglo-Afghan War. The conflict led to the signing of the Treaty of Gandamak in 1879, but tensions flared again in 1885 with the Punjdah incident. The delimitation protocol in 1885 and the exchange of notes in 1895 marked the end of the Great Game, delineating boundaries and recognizing Afghanistan as a buffer state. The Anglo-Russian Convention of 1907 shifted the focus from rivalry to a common concern, opposing the German Empire. The convention divided influence zones in Iran, with Russia recognizing Afghanistan and southern Iran in the British sphere and Britain acknowledging Central Asia and northern Iran in the Russian sphere. Historians differ on when the Great Game began and ended, with various opinions on its timeline. The consequences and influence of the Great Game extended beyond the 19th century and had significant effects on contemporary political boundaries, especially in India. Scholars have suggested a connection between the Great Game and the partition of India in 1947. Some argue that the British supported the creation of Pakistan to maintain military influence in the region after Indian nationalists would not cooperate with them militarily. The term Great Game has also been applied to the period from 1919 to 1933, where Britain and the Soviet Union engaged in a second tournament of shadows. This conflict revolved around the borders of British India, China, the Soviet Union, and Japanese Manchuria. The term New Great Game has been used metaphorically in the late 20th and early 21st centuries to describe renewed geopolitical interest in Central Asia, particularly concerning the region's mineral wealth. In conclusion, the Great Game was a multifaceted geopolitical struggle with deep historical roots, shaping the fate of Central Asia and the surrounding regions and leaving a lasting impact on the geopolitical landscape. The complex interplay of strategic interests, explorations, and ideological motivations defined this era of intense competition between the British and Russian empires.